The first night, I woke up at 3:17. I didn't think anything of it. The next night, it was 3:16, then 3:15. After that, it was every night, 1 minute earlier exactly, with no alarm and no noise loud enough to explain it. And every one of those nights, there were footsteps in the hallway outside my bedroom. I have to be careful about how I say the next part. The footsteps were mine. I moved into that apartment in September. 6 units off Delaware Avenue, built sometime in the 70s. The mailboxes are in the stairwell, and the hallway carpet is that beige that isn't really a color. It's just what carpet turns into. 800 and change a month, 15 minutes from work. I took it after one walkthrough. The layout is simple, and you'll need it. You come in the front door into the living room. To the left, there's a hallway, maybe 18 feet long, and it dead ends at the bathroom. Halfway down, there's a closet. My bedroom door is on the right, near the far end. There's a ceiling light in the middle of the hall, with one of those frosted glass domes that fills up with dead bugs. And down low on the wall, close to the floor, there's a return vent that's in a stupid spot for airflow. Hold on to that. Don't make anything of it yet. I didn't. Here's what I knew about myself in September. I was 34. I process claims for a regional insurance company, which is exactly as interesting as it sounds. I'd been out of a 5-year relationship for 8 months, and I was doing the thing where you tell everybody you're fine and then buy a lot of frozen food. And my father had been dead for 17 years, which meant he'd been dead exactly as long as I'd known him. That occurred to me on my birthday in August, and I put it away fast. He had a heart attack in the hallway of our house on Baird Street. 3 a.m. He was 49. The version I've told people for 17 years goes like this. I was asleep. Something woke me up around 3:13. I know that because I looked at the clock on my nightstand, and I remember the number. I opened my bedroom door, and he was already down, and he wasn't responding. And then it's a blur. And my mom called 911, and the call is logged at 3:20. 7 minutes. I've always said it's a blur. I've said that sentence maybe 400 times, and nobody has ever once asked a 17-year-old to account for 7 minutes on the worst night of his life. People are kind about that, much kinder than they need to be. So, September. The first few times, I did what anybody does. Looked at my phone, saw the number, put it face down, went back to sleep. It didn't turn into anything until the 3rd night, when I woke up and my phone said 3:15, and I lay there in the dark and did the subtraction. And something in my chest went very quiet and very attentive. That was also the first night I heard the footsteps. Not creaks, not the building settling, actual footsteps on carpet out in the hall, moving slow, and then stopping. That's the part I kept coming back to. They didn't pass by. They stopped. I didn't get up. I want that on the record because it matters later. I lay there with my eyes open, and I didn't move. And eventually I fell back asleep, and in the morning it seemed stupid. Then I worked the problem like a job, because that's what I do. Carol upstairs is a nurse and keeps hours that make no sense. Water pipes. The guy in 4C, who I'd met once and had decided, on no evidence at all, was a wanderer. I checked the front door lock every night for a week. I balanced a coffee mug on the doorknob so it'd fall if it turned. It never fell. On the 4th night, I woke up at 3:14, heard the footsteps again, and made a decision I still can't fully explain to myself. I bought a camera. $34 off the internet. One of those little white plastic ones you set on a shelf and watch from your phone. I put it on the bookcase in the living room, aimed straight down the hallway. You could see the whole length of it. The closet, the vent, my bedroom door on the right, the bathroom at the end.
The next night I woke up at 3:13, and yes, I noticed. Of course I noticed. But I want to be honest about how a brain handles something like that because it doesn't scream. It files. It says, huh, and then goes and makes coffee. The footage from that night is 11 seconds long, in the sense that 11 seconds of it are the only part I've ever managed to watch all the way through.
There's a man standing at the far end of my hallway, down by the bathroom door. He isn't doing anything, just standing there, facing my bedroom door, arms at his sides. Gray t-shirt, dark shorts, which is what I sleep in because I'm not interesting enough to sleep in anything else. I watched it about 30 times before work. Then I called out sick and watched it more. And the explanation I built, standing in my kitchen at 9 in the morning with the blinds shut, was sleepwalking. Obviously, it's me. It's clearly me. I get up, I stand in the hall, I go back to bed, and my brain drops the recording. That's a real thing that happens to real people. So I tested it properly because I was scared, and being thorough felt like being brave. I wedged a kitchen chair under my bedroom doorknob. I bought a $9 door alarm, the magnetic kind that shrieks when the contact breaks. And I put a second camera on my dresser, pointed at my bed. Then I lay down and waited for 3:12. I woke up at 3:12. The chair hadn't moved. The alarm never went off. The footsteps came down the hall, slow, and stopped somewhere in the middle. And I lay on my side with my eyes open, and I did not move. In the morning, I opened both recordings on my laptop, side by side, same timestamp on both. Left window, my bedroom. Me in bed, on my side, eyes open, awake, not moving. Right window, my hallway. Me standing next to the hall closet, closer than the night before, facing my bedroom door. And that door is shut. It stays shut the whole time. Nobody opens it in either direction on either recording. I sat at my kitchen table watching myself be in two places for about 40 minutes. I'd like to tell you I panicked. What actually happened is I got very calm and very cold, and I opened the Notes app on my phone and started writing down times and positions, like I was doing intake on a claim. 3:14, bathroom door, far end, call it 18 feet. 3:13, hall closet, 13 feet. 3:12, beside the vent, 9 feet. About 2 feet a night. Every night, 1 minute earlier, a little closer to my door. And once I had it written out, the number waiting at the bottom of that list was 313. Because that's the number. That's the number I've had in my mouth since I was 17 years old. I woke up. The clock said 3:13. I opened the door. So here's what I decided. And I want you to hear how reasonable it sounded inside my own head. The countdown was walking me back to 3:13. When it got there, something would resolve. There'd be a moment, I'd see something, and afterward I'd sleep. I genuinely thought about it like an appointment I had to keep. 3 more nights. I should tell you about the clock now. My father broke it. He was hauling a dresser out of my room the spring before he died, set the corner of it down on my nightstand, and knocked the alarm clock onto the floor. Cheap red thing from the drugstore, $5, with the numbers made out of little glowing bars. It still worked fine. But one of those bars stopped lighting up, and after that, the clock lied about certain numbers. Not all of them, just some. It was a running joke for a while. My mom would ask what time it was, and I'd say, well, according to the clock. And she'd say, oh, that thing. Dad kept saying he'd pick me up a new one. He never did, because he was 49 and he had time. I want you to understand that this was funny. For about 6 months in our house, this was genuinely funny.
3 more nights. First one, 3:11.
He's standing under the hall light, 6 feet from my door. And that's the night I first noticed the red. It's faint. You'd miss it if you weren't studying the same 18 feet of carpet every morning like scripture. But there's a small red smudge of light on the brass of my bedroom doorknob, and it flickers, the way those glowing numbers flicker on a cheap camera. There is nothing red in my apartment. My thermostat is one of those white digital ones with a gray screen. I don't own a bedside clock, hadn't in years, and I'd never once asked myself why. Second night, 3:10. He's an arm's length from my door now, standing at an angle, head down a little. He isn't looking at the door at all. He's looking down and to the left at the wall, at the vent near the floor. And the red isn't on the doorknob anymore. It's on the wall beside him, thrown across the paint at a slant, the way light comes out of an open doorway. If you blow up the picture and turn the brightness all the way up, you can almost make out shapes in it. Third night, 3:09. Before I went to bed, I did 2 things. I called my mother. I asked her, as casually as I could manage, who called 911 that night. She said, "I did, honey. You came and got me." I asked what time. She said 3:20. Then she said, "It's on the sheet. I kept the sheet." I said, "I know." We talked about her neighbor's dog for 11 minutes, and I hung up and sat down on my floor. The second thing I did was finally admit what I'd been doing for 8 straight nights. Waking up, hearing footsteps outside a closed bedroom door, and lying completely still. 8 for 8. A grown man in his own apartment, wide awake, listening to something stop outside his room and not moving. I'd like to say I only just noticed that. I think I'd known for about 4 days and had been very carefully not finishing the thought. I also finally noticed what I'd been listening for. My father dragged his left foot. Not badly. He wrecked his knee in his 20s and never got it fixed, and on carpet it made a soft scuff before the step landed. If you grew up in that house, you could tell who was coming down the hall in the dark without looking up. 8 nights I'd been lying there listening for a scuff. There isn't one. There never was. The footsteps in my hallway have my stride. They're a 34-year-old man's bare feet on cheap carpet, and they always were. And I had been waiting on a sound that was never coming because I wanted it to be him instead of me. At 3:09 I woke up. The footsteps came down the hall. 4 steps, 5, 6, and then they stopped, and there was no space left between the last step and my door. There was red light coming in underneath it, a thin strip of it lying on my carpet. And I finally understood that the question was never, what does it want? It was, is it trying to get in, or is it waiting for me to come out? I got up. I moved the chair. I opened the door. The hallway was mine. Same beige carpet, same dead bugs in the ceiling dome. But the air was different. That specific basement cool in a building that doesn't have a basement. And there was a smell I hadn't smelled in 17 years, which was our laundry detergent. He was standing 2 feet away, turned slightly, head down. He never looked at me. Not once, not the whole time. And I know exactly why, because on that night, in that other hallway, I never looked at my father's face. I looked at the vent. I stood in a doorway and I stared at a metal grate near the floor for as long as it took, because looking at the grate meant I wasn't looking at anything else. So he looked at the vent. That's all he had. And on the carpet between us there was a glass of water, standing upright, full, with a ring of damp gone into the carpet around the base of it. My dad took pills at night, and he'd leave a glass on the floor outside the bathroom so he wouldn't have to carry it in the dark. Drove my mother crazy, the rings it left on things. And for 17 years, whenever I've let myself think about that night at all, I've used that glass. It was still standing up, so it couldn't have been violent. He must have gone down slow and quiet. Standing there looking at it, all I could think was that a glass has to sit a long time to leave a mark like that. The red light was coming from behind me now, out of my own bedroom doorway, laid across the carpet in front of us in 2 clean numbers, backwards, the way light falls through a door. 309. And then, while I stood there, it changed. 310. I've thought a lot about why I didn't move, and I don't have anything for you. I could have gone back in my room. Nothing was holding me there. I stood in a rented hallway in Ohio at 3 in the morning, next to a man wearing my shirt, and I watched a number on the floor go up by 1, and then up by 1 again, and my whole body did what it does, which is nothing. 311, 312, 313, and when it hit 313, my shoulders actually dropped, because there it was. That's my number. That's where I moved. 17 years, and the proof is right there on the floor in red. I stood in the doorway for 4 minutes, and then I went and got my mother. 4 minutes is bad, but 4 minutes is a thing a scared kid does. Then I looked at it properly. The last number had a gap in it. 1 little bar in the corner, not lit. I don't know how long I stood there. Long enough for it to go to 314, and 315, and 316. At 317, he stopped saying it. I'd forgotten that, or I'd put it wherever you put things like that. He was on his side on the carpet, and he was awake, and he was looking at me. And twice, not once, twice, he said, "Hey," and then, "Hey, Chief." That's all of it. He was trying to sound normal about it so I wouldn't be scared. And I stood in the doorway with my hand still on the knob, and I looked at a vent.
That's why it started at 317. It started where he stopped. 318, 319. And then the number quit moving. Not 313. There was never a 313. There was a 319 on a clock my father broke carrying furniture out of my room. 11 minutes. 11 minutes of a man lying on the floor of a hallway saying hey to his kid. And his kid 4 feet away, awake, with the door open, doing nothing at all. I got down on the carpet. I don't remember deciding to. I put my hand flat on the floor next to the glass, in the wet part, and I said, "Hey." Out loud, in an empty hallway, in a building where a woman named Carol was asleep directly above me. Nothing answered. I need people to know that. Nothing answered. That's the part where a different kind of story would have given me something. The cold went out of the air. The detergent smell went. The glass wasn't there. The carpet was dry. The light under my door was gone. He was gone. It was a hallway with dead bugs in the ceiling fixture. That was October. It hasn't happened since. The recording from that last night is 19 minutes of an empty hallway with a bedroom door standing open. You can hear me at the end. You can't make out what I'm saying.
I don't own a clock anymore. Nothing in the bedroom, nothing by the bed. I took the microwave out of the kitchen and put a toaster oven there instead, which is an insane thing to do, and which I did anyway. My phone charges in the living room, on the far side of a closed door. My watch is analog, and it goes in a drawer at night. And when I wake up, which is most nights, I don't check the time. People assume that's about the past. It isn't. I know what happened now. I know the real number, and I know how long I stood there. And knowing it hasn't fixed one single thing, which is something nobody warns you about the truth.
It's that I don't know if it's finished. It stopped at 3:09, and I have no idea whether that's because it was done or because that's just as far back as it goes. If I sit up some night and look at a screen, I'll know. Either it's a normal time and I'm a man with bad sleep, or it's earlier than 3:09 and it started again, and this time it's counting towards something I don't even have a wrong version of. So I don't look. I lie there in the dark on my side with my eyes open, and I listen to the hallway, and I don't move. I've gotten very good at it,